In the heart of Damascus, Zayd, a young man of 20, lived with a mind that never seemed to rest. From the moment he woke up, his thoughts would race through his head, and by the time he opened his eyes to the new day, he would already be overwhelmed with questions and doubts. Should he take the apprenticeship at the trading post that his father had once suggested? What if he wasn't cut out for it? What if he failed? The thought of failure gnawed at him endlessly. He would lie awake at night, his mind spinning with questions. What if there was something greater he was meant to do? What if he wasn't fulfilling his potential? Each thought seemed to crash into the next like waves in a restless sea, and the weight of indecision felt suffocating. Zayd's father, a respected scholar, had passed away several years ago, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom and patience. People would often speak of his wisdom, how he was known for his calmness in the face of adversity, his ability to approach each challenge with a thoughtful and measured mind. Zayd, however, felt that he had inherited none of his father's clarity or confidence. Where his father had moved through life with purpose, Zayd felt he was just stumbling, taking each step unsure of where he was headed. Every decision felt like walking on a tightrope above a bottomless pit of regret. If he made the wrong choice, he feared he would fall, and he would never be able to get back up again. His mother noticed the change in him. Zayd's once bright and energetic eyes had become dull with exhaustion. He had lost his appetite, and his spirits seemed to be sinking with each passing day. She was worried for him, yet she didn't know how to help. Every time she asked him what was wrong, Zayd would merely shake his head, unable to put his turmoil into words. He couldn't explain why he felt so lost, why the weight of his decisions felt unbearable. One evening, as Zayd sat staring at the untouched food before him, his mother gently placed a hand on his. Her voice was soft but firm. "My son," she said, her tone filled with the quiet wisdom of years. "Go visit Sheikh Omar at the masjid. He has helped many troubled souls find peace. Perhaps he can help you too." "Sheikh," Zayd said, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "I am Zayd. I have come because I cannot escape my thoughts. Every choice I make feels like it could ruin my future, and I feel lost. How do I stop this endless worrying?" The Sheikh smiled gently, his face kind but knowing. Without a word, he handed Zayd a small bag of seeds and gestured for him to follow. Zayd followed the Sheikh as he led him to a quiet patch of soil behind the masjid. The Sheikh knelt down and began to plant the seeds in neat rows, his hands moving with practiced ease. There was a peacefulness in the way he worked, as though he had done it 1,000 times before, and never felt hurried or anxious. "Tell me, Zayd," the Sheikh asked, "if you plant a seed in the soil, do you dig it up every day to see if it's growing?" Zayd blinked, slightly taken aback by the question. He paused for a moment before answering. "No," he said, "that would stop it from growing. You have to leave it alone for it to grow." The Sheikh nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Exactly," he said, "and yet that is what you are doing with your thoughts. You plant an idea or a worry, but you dig it up every day with doubt, with anxiety. You never give it a chance to grow." Zayd's eyes widened as the Sheikh's words sank in. He had never thought of his thoughts in that way before. The Sheikh continued, "Allah has already written your story, my son. You must plant your intentions, take action, and then trust that He will bring what is best for you at the right time. Just as the seed will sprout when it is meant to, you too must trust that everything will unfold as it should." The Sheikh then pointed to a large olive tree nearby. "This tree," he said, "has taken years to grow strong. Do you think it worries about whether it will bear fruit? Does it rush its growth or try to control the outcome?" Zayd shook his head slowly, a small realization dawning upon him. The tree had been growing steadily, year after year, without the need to control every aspect of its life. It simply grew, trusting in the process of nature, trusting in the Creator. Over the next few weeks, Zayd returned to the masjid regularly. He helped the Sheikh in the garden, tending to the plants and learning from his wisdom. With each passing day, he began to understand the deeper meaning behind the Sheikh's teachings. Whenever his mind would race with doubts and fears, he would remind himself of the tree, of the seed, and of the importance of tawakkul, trusting in Allah's plan. One day, Zayd's uncle came to him with an offer to join his business. In the past, Zayd would have been paralyzed with indecision, unable to make even the smallest of decisions without worrying about the consequences. But this time he prayed istikhara, seeking guidance from Allah, and then accepted the opportunity with a heart full of peace. He no longer felt the overwhelming weight of uncertainty that had once consumed him. He trusted that Allah would guide him to what was best, just as He had guided the seed to grow into the tree. A year later, Zayd found himself once again sitting in the masjid garden. His life had changed in many ways. Not because his problems had disappeared, but because he had learned to let go and trust in Allah. His once restless mind had found peace. He no longer feared making the wrong choices, because he knew that even if he did, Allah would always guide him back to the right path. The Sheikh sat beside him, a smile on his face. Do you still fear making the wrong choices, Zayd? He asked. Zayd shook his head, his heart at ease. No, Sheikh. I now know that even if I make a mistake, Allah will guide me back to where I need to be. The Sheikh pointed to the olive tree. Then you have learned well, my son. Remember always that Allah says in the Quran, perhaps you dislike something and it is good for you, and perhaps you love something and it is bad for you. And Allah knows, while you know not. Quran 2:216. Zayd looked at the tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. He felt a deep sense of gratitude. The tree stood firm, its roots grounded in the earth, trusting in the plan of Allah. Zayd too felt rooted, no longer swaying with every doubt and fear that once had controlled him. His heart was steady, his faith firm. As Zayd turned to leave, he noticed a young man pacing outside the masjid. His face was drawn with worry, his footsteps quick and restless. Zayd smiled, remembering himself a year ago, how he had felt the same way. With newfound confidence, he approached the man. Are you all right? Zayd asked gently. The young man looked up, his eyes wide with anxiety. I don't know what to do, he said. I'm so afraid of making the wrong choice. Every decision feels like it could ruin my future. Zayd placed a hand on his shoulder. I once felt the same way, Zayd said, but I've learned something. You must trust in the process. Plant your intentions like a seed, and leave the rest to Allah. The journey may not always go as you expect, but know that you are never alone in your decisions. Allah is always guiding you. The young man looked at Zayd, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He nodded slowly, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Zayd smiled to himself as he walked away. He had learned the lesson of the seed, the tree, and the trust in Allah's plan. It was now his turn to share that lesson, to pass it on to someone else who needed it. And so, with a heart full of peace and faith, Zayd stepped forward into the world, knowing that whatever path he took, it would always be guided by a higher purpose.